Hello, welcome back to Forbidden Radio, Season 2, Episode 4. My name is Angel, and I'm joined by my co-host Luke, and we have a special guest today by the name of Shawn Winchell. He is a paranormal and horror writer. I believe he has 5 books out already. So if you would like to check him out, you can look up his website. We'll have it down in the links below. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Shawn.
Yeah, like you said, my name is Shawn Winchell. My first book I published in the summer of 2021, so going on 4 years now, I think, if my math is right. And I do have 5 books and 2 novellas out. My next one is coming out soon. And like you said, I write paranormal suspense and horror.
So how did you get into writing paranormal suspense and horror?
That actually, it's kind of a funny story. I always had an interest in writing when I was younger, and actually ended up jumping around when in college, changed my major like 7-8 times, and at the end of it, I ended up what I had the most credits for and was able to graduate with was a creative writing degree, and so that's kind of what I went with. And I never really planned on writing this type of stuff. I love horror, but never really thought of myself as a horror writer. I always thought I would write more noir kind of detective type stuff. And when I sat down and started writing, it's just what came out.
Sometimes it goes like that. Like you expect to, or you want to do something, but your brain is just like, nope, we're doing this now.
Yeah, I mean, and my biggest thing was the Philip Marlowe books by Raymond Chandler. I loved those, and I wanted to write stuff like that, and it just didn't happen. But kind of jumping off your point of what comes out being different, it's really funny. My first book, I planned for it, and I could still write the book that I had initially outlined. And what I ended up with for my debut was so different from what I initially set out to write that I could still write that book and no one would know.
Yeah, it's just a completely different book at this point.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. For me, I know everybody's writing process is different, but for me especially, once I start writing, the story really kind of takes over and I don't have much say in what happens.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way.
Yeah, I very much feel that. Usually I do like a very broad strokes kind of outline, just like some scenes that I have in mind and some characters and the general idea, and then I just start writing and it changes wildly as the story goes on.
I always try to have an outline, at least an idea of what I want to have happening in the book. At least a few key scenes here and there, or the ending maybe. Not always, but that way when it does get too far off course, it's like when you have your GPS on, right? And it's got to reroute. It kind of helps you get back on track a little bit so you don't end up writing the same thing forever. Because some stories really could, once they get a hold of it, I feel like could just keep going and never end.
Yeah, that's a great analogy, honestly, the GPS. I normally start off with outlining my characters and like no plot, just characters. And I'm like, all right, let's see where this is going to go. So I start writing and then the characters kind of just take a life of their own and I'm just here to speak their words for them.
I like that. Yeah. For me, I use a lot of index cards. Okay. I usually get the main couple characters and some key things about them, and then I go with anywhere from 20 to 30 plot points or key scenes that I want to make sure are included, and then anything in between. It's just kind of however I get from one to the next. I don't really know. It's just whatever ends up coming out when I start typing.
Yeah, I get that. I read your short story, the free one that you have in your newsletter, which, by the way, if you guys want to check out a sample of his writing, you can join his newsletter and get a free edition of his short story called Purple Shoes and Polka Dots. And it was really good. I like the way you write.
Yeah, I love it. when I first started, you know, everybody talks about, oh, you got to have a reader magnet. You got to have something for free for your newsletter. And to me, it's like, man, how am I going to write a whole nother book? You know?
Yeah.
I got one, and this took a while, so I don't know what I'm going to do. And this was one that actually it started as a flash fiction piece in one of my college courses.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been, it's been 25, or no, not 25, 15 years ago.
Okay.
I'm a writer, not mathematician. But, yeah, it was about 15 years ago, and it started just as a 500-word flash fiction piece for one of my courses, and I ended up expanding it, and I used that actually for grad school applications.
Ooh, okay.
At the time, I was hoping to get my MFA in creative writing, and that story I kind of get bummed out talking about, because I got into my top choice school, and you know, obviously I didn't pay the deposits for the other schools that I got accepted to, because I got in my top choice. Let's do it. That's where I'm going. And then when I got my financial aid statement, with scholarships and loans, I would have needed a $30,000 a year job just to cover tuition. And that doesn't even include rent in San Francisco, which is ridiculous. So I ended up not going that route. But it's a story that it was actually really hard for me to write. I got a thing with clowns, and the antagonist in that story is a clown. It's, I guess you could say, semi-autobiographical. I did have an imaginary friend when I was little that I called Mr. Clown, and I thought he was trying to kill me.
You know, I kind of got that feeling from reading it.
That one, yeah, that one took a lot out of me to write, and there's definitely a reason that one is the length it is and not ever going to be anything longer than that, because it hit a little too close to home, let's say.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel that sometimes the things that scare us the most are the things we want to put down on paper. Like when I wrote my first book, it's a creature feature, and as I was writing the book, I would have dreams about the monster from my story, like hunting me down and killing me.
Oh God!
And I would wake up and be like, "Oh, that's a really good death. I got to write that in the book."
No!
And like 2 of the deaths in the book are exactly how I died in my dreams, and I was like, "Well, this was awful."
It's fantastic.
It's just nightmares are just writing fuel for horror.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, honestly,
absolutely.
I've never even been that much into horror. I'm someone that, like, I'm easily scared, and so I'd rather just not read or watch things that, like, are meant to scare me. But I don't know. Recently, I've kind of been getting into it, and I feel like I'm gonna have to check out some of you guys' books, both of you guys.
I mean, I'm a little bit biased, but I mean, I absolutely love it. I watch it. It's kind of my comfort. I have a stressful day, or the kids are acting up, or, you know, I just gotta unwind a little bit. It's like, I need to watch somebody get their throat slit right now. I mean, don't judge me for that. It's almost soothing, cathartic, I guess would be the word, right?
Yeah. I get you.
I feel the same way. Whenever I'm writing, or, you know, if I'm just like playing around on my phone, I'll just have a horror movie on in the background. Usually a found footage horror movie, because I don't have to pay too much attention to them.
Oh, there you go. Those are always fun.
Oh yeah, they're either really, really surprisingly good, or so horribly bad that you can't help but laugh.
Yeah, one of those so bad it's funny type of things.
Yeah. And the bad ones are just as much fun to watch as the good ones. That's the best part. Same with the campier the better. I love it.
Oh yeah, found footage has a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
So what?
Sorry, go ahead.
So what is your favorite scary movie? If you had to pick one to recommend to people.
Oh. You know, the one I've always had a soft spot for is probably the original Nightmare on Elm Street. That's one of the first horror movies I remember watching, and I absolutely love it.
I mean, that is a classic horror flick. You gotta love Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh
he's
yeah.
awful. He's awful, but he's a great antagonist.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've got the remake they did about 10, 15 years ago. I've got that saved on my Netflix list. I got a flight coming up in a couple weeks. I'm probably gonna watch it on that, but I haven't watched it, haven't revisited it in a while. But yeah, it's especially when you're younger, those ones you watch just make such an impact.
Oh yeah, I mean, I grew up on 80s
With
horror.
anything, not just horror, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up on 80s horror, and I really loved 1982, The Thing with Kurt Russell.
I've never seen it.
yeah, that's a classic for sure.
You would love it, Angel. You should watch it on live
I feel
stream.
like you're trying to set me up for failure here.
I am absolutely not trying to set you up for anything.
I think
Don't
you
worry.
just want to watch me get scared. That's what I'm guessing. Yeah, no.
It's really not that scary. It's not that scary. There's some really great practical effects in it. There are some jump scares in it. I mean, it's a horror movie,
yeah.
but it's a really cool narrative, especially if you like pay attention to what was going on at that period of time with like the AIDS epidemic and all of that. Like, there's a lot of like social commentary like on the underneath of everything,
Okay.
and it's just a really cool movie.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I can appreciate some good practical effects. I feel like that's way better than special effects for sure, like computer generated.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the thing is, my mom is an even huger scaredy cat than me. So growing up, we just were not allowed to ever watch horror movies, and so I just never got used to it. My sister somehow got the opposite, where like she loves them, but I can't do it.
It's like when you get braces, right? And they tell you not to have any sugar, and you start drinking a bunch of Coke and eating a bunch of candy.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
tell you not to do it, so that's what you end up obsessed with.
Yep. But for me, it's like I have like a very vivid imagination. So like if you make me watch a scary movie and then you put me in a dark room, all the visions that like all the scenes of the movie just come right back to me, and I feel like the antagonist is right in front of me. So I'm like, no, thank you. I'll just stay away from that.
And that's what makes you a horror writer. You just haven't realized it yet.
Honestly, dude, I'm gonna be honest. I've been wanting to try writing horror, like, but I feel like I have to like watch or read some first to kind of get like some idea of what I'm getting into or how to like structure that. But I am interested in writing it. I feel like it'd be fun.
And it's such a huge, broad genre that you almost can't go wrong. You know,
Yeah.
anything you do, there's going to be a niche for it.
Yeah. I mean, growing up, I was a fan of like children's scary stories where it was like scary stories to tell in the dark and whatnot. Where it's just like short stories and they're like not really horror, but they're more like creepy. So I think writing something like that would be really fun.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I grew up on Goosebumps and American Chillers, and they were just the best.
Oh, Goosebumps. I did read a couple
Oh
growing
yeah,
up and those were great.
absolutely.
And then I feel like if I'm the
My
one,
oldest son is 6, and he just got into. We just started reading some of the Goosebumps books, and that's a whole lot of fun going back to those after so much time.
yeah,
especially
which ones
like
have you guys
seeing it
read?
through somebody else's eyes.
Ooh, like yeah,
For sure, and seeing the things that creep them out, or you know, oh, I can't sleep because of that, or then the things that they get excited about. It's like, okay, all right.
yeah. I'm sure it's funny when you're not the one that's scared, right?
yeah. I mean, the Goosebumps books don't hit quite as hard when you're an adult, but
Yeah.
but I definitely remember reading them for the first time too. So it's really cool to see them getting into it too. I've got 5 kids, and none of them really are into horror, but they all have their moments where they are kind of like, okay, maybe someday.
Yeah. I think if you tell them you're not allowed to watch or read any horror, then they'll be interested in it. They'll be like, well, I'm not gonna do what he says.
Yeah, it's funny. Our oldest is about to turn 9, and she's a huge reader, and she's reading at like a 6th, 7th grade level in
Wow.
3rd grade, and she can't ever, she'll come home with 5 books from school and finish them all that night. So the fact that I write, she's really excited about that and really into everything that I write. But what I write isn't really for kids, so we never let any of them read any of it.
Yeah.
And just not too long ago during their winter break, I had a damaged copy of one of my books, and it just so happened to be the one that she's the cover model on. And I was like, you know what? It's from the perspective of a 9-year-old, so let's go ahead. But just know if it gets to be too much, it's okay to stop. And she read the whole thing in one afternoon going into the night, and then she comes storming into our bedroom, my wife and I's bedroom, and she slams the book down and says, "You got to keep this out of my room or I'm never going to sleep again."
I totally get that. Was
That's
it
almost the best compliment you could get.
But
oh yeah.
she had been so excited to read it, and then she finally did, and she's like, "Get this thing away from me." But she's kind of rad. The book's allowed to be in her room again, and we're good now. But it took her a couple of weeks.
Now, which book was that? Was that Bird's Eye?
Yeah, that's Bird's Eye. That's the girl on the cover. That one is my oldest.
Very cool.
It was funny. We needed a girl for the cover. The narrator of that book is a 9-year-old girl, and she's about that age. And it's like, okay, well, I need a picture. So instead of buying a picture, we just, hey, let's just take one, and it can be you. And we did that, and then all the kids. We have 5 kids, and they all want their own book. So it's like, oh, which one do I get to be on?
Yeah, well, see, now you have to write one for each kid.
Yeah, we're getting there. I knocked out both of the boys on one book. One's on the front cover, one's on the back. So they look enough alike that they kind of pass as the same person.
Okay, and that's the one called Liminal?
We use one on the front. Yeah, Liminal. I have my boys on the front and the back. And then my next book coming out is our other daughter. I guess not our other daughter. We have 2 other daughters, but she's our middle of the 5, and it's a close up of her face with googly eyes over the top of hers, and they're dripping blood. So that one, I'm really excited for this book. It's going to be probably my scariest book that I've written, and she's so into it. We had to order a blanket, a full-size blanket with the book cover printed on it, and she sleeps with it every night. And she's so excited about every aspect of this book, but Hocus Pocus is too scary for her. So it's a really interesting situation. She told me I have to make it the scariest thing I've ever written, but she can't handle anything even kind of scary. But she's also told me that no matter what, she's reading it this summer. So we'll see how it goes.
Oh, God. She's also going to storm into the bedroom and try to hide the book with you.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. Actually, for her, I don't know that she'll ever admit that it's too scary. She'll just power through.
Oh,
that's
okay.
just kind of the personality she's got. She's just going to power through and just going to hold it in. And then she's just going to resent me for the rest of her life. Right?
Oh, God.
I traumatized her when she was 5.
There you go. So you're just setting her up for future therapy bills.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a parent's job, isn't it?
Oh, God. Yeah,
that's right.
That is true.
You got to give them something to talk about to their therapist.
So, of the 7 books that you have published right now, if someone were to want a taste of what you would think your best work is, which of your books would you recommend?
Oh, Um, Probably would have to say Liminal.
Yeah.
That one is my favorite story. Uh, it's yeah, and I mean it feels a little bit like picking your favorite kid, right? Like
Yeah.
you're almost not supposed to have a favorite, but
Yeah.
everybody does, whether you want to admit it or not. You do. And this one, from the moment I started writing it, I knew this was going to be my favorite thing I ever wrote. Um, I absolutely love unreliable narrators, and there's a little bit of that in all of my work, but it really goes all in Liminal. And even after the ending, you don't really know what to believe or what was real or what wasn't. And I love that aspect of the story.
Oh my god, you're making me want to read all your books. I'm not even lying. And I don't even like horror, but they sound so interesting. I think I'm gonna pick up the ebook after this.
Well, well, my stuff is all on the lighter side of. I mean, horror is a huge spectrum, right?
Yeah,
My
yeah.
stuff's all on the lighter side, and it varies from book to book, but they're not super gory or super intense. But Liminal is probably the most psychological of any of the books that I've written.
Okay.
A lot of it plays out in the guy's head, and I mean, just a quick overview of it. If you've seen In the Mouth of Madness, you probably haven't since you don't watch horror, but
Yeah, no.
it's an old John Carpenter movie, and it's got a real similar vibe to that movie. And I absolutely love that movie, but it's the guy from Jurassic Park, and I'm blanking on his name, but he's an insurance investigator or something, and goes to investigate a disappearance, and the whole thing is just a huge mind trip, and it's inspired by Lovecraft, and obviously some of that comes into play with some of what he ends up experiencing and seeing. There's no tentacles in my books, but it's definitely got the same vibe for sure.
Okay, yeah, see, I like those like psychological horrors more than like the gory stuff, which is what Luke writes. He likes killing people in like very descriptive ways.
I do like my descriptions.
Yeah, that's a different part of the spectrum than I'm on. There's some deaths. You can't have anything really like that without somebody dying at some point.
Yeah,
But
sure.
it's not overly graphic, or for me, when I'm writing, I love that stuff, watching it or reading it. I love all that stuff too. But when I'm writing, that's not what's important. And so that ends up taking more of a backseat to
Right.
kind of just the creepy, it's more creepy than downright scary.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, there's definitely, I mean, there's so many different, like you said earlier, there's so many different subgenres of horror, and yeah, there's some people that are gonna get smacked in the face by the blood and the gore and the violent deaths and the descriptions and all that, and then there's the creeping dread that comes with psychological horror, and they each have their own special place in people's hearts, and you can enjoy and write all of them and enjoy them. Like, I love those psychological horrors. Like, sometimes those stick with me more than the blood and guts.
Oh yeah, those are definitely the ones that stick in your head, I feel like.
Yeah,
Like
for
I
sure.
remember in like I think like middle school, and we had to do like a like reading assignment for English class, and they made us read some Edgar Allan Poe stuff, and the Telltale Heart, like it's really short and it's not even that scary or anything, but it just kind of stuck with me. I don't know, something about the way that they describe it from the guy's point of view. So it just like, it's cool, and it really stuck with me.
Yeah, I love that story. And it definitely is one that doesn't ever go away.
Yeah.
So what can you tell us about your current work in progress?
Well, like I said, I guess I didn't say. It's called Googly Eye. I I told you what the cover looks like, but it's called Googly Eye, and it's gonna be more of an occult horror than my other stuff. Just kind of a little tease. These family moves to a new town, and on the way into town, they stop, take a bathroom break. They got young kids in the car, and they stop at an antique shop. And in the back of the antique shop, there's, some oddities, let's say. And the girls sneak back there and start playing around, and they're messing with a Ouija board and tarot cards, all kinds of stuff like that. And when they end up leaving, they don't leave alone.
Oh god.
And I don't want to give too much away, but it's more of I've actually, most of my books are all pretty different. They're not really in the same. I kind of jump around from subgenre to subgenre, but this one is definitely all in on the cult and possession, and it's gonna be a little bit more graphic than my other works, but I'm really excited about it. And actually, of my, I guess it would be my 8th book, it is probably the one I spent the most time thinking about before I started writing.
I mean, if there's anything
And
I've learned from horror, is that you should always play with the cursed objects.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. How could you not?
And do we have a release date for that one?
I'm really excited for it, and I have kind of a release window. It'll be either late March or early April.
Okay, I'll keep an eye out.
I'm still finalizing a few things before I set that in stone. I've had some bad luck in the past with setting a date too soon, and then something doesn't go quite according to plan, and it's never fun to have to push a release date.
Yeah. It says here on your website that you're a fan of Stephen King.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. You have to be, right? Who isn't?
I'm gonna be honest, I've never read any of his works, except I'm currently reading his it's like almost like an autobiography. It's called On Writing, but it's just like more nonfiction stuff. Yeah, it's really good though. I like his writing style.
Oh yeah, that one, that's a good one. I mean, for anyone interested in writing, for sure. But even if you're not, that's a good one to read. It gives a real great behind the scenes look at his process. I mean, everybody's process is different, but someone who's that successful and that prolific for so long, it's always interesting to see, kind of get a look behind the scenes at that.
Yeah, and I mean, you can always learn something new from reading people's biographies and stuff.
Absolutely.
But what is your favorite Stephen King book then?
My favorite it's one I don't hear talked about quite as often, but it's Duma Key. And I think I clicked with it. I had back surgery right before I read it for the first time. And so I really connected with the protagonist in the story. Because it's a guy gets his arm cut off in a construction accident. And, that's right at the beginning. And then the whole story follows him as he's recovering. And then, of course, all the other stuff starts happening and things go off the rails. And like any Stephen King book, bad stuff starts happening. But just the recovery, I think I connected with the character a lot more just because of the timing of it. But I also really liked Dr. Sleep, with the sequel he wrote to The Shining. Mm-hmm. That would probably be a close second.
Yeah, I think my favorite was The Dark Half.
That's a good one too. He's got 85 books, something like that. It's they're all, so many of them are so good. I mean, there's a few. I think everybody has a few that they're not big fans of. If they're, they follow and read and watch all his stuff. I think you'd be hard to find someone who likes everything. But
Yeah.
I mean, when you put
it's
out that much,
really, really interesting. Yeah. Someone's gonna not like something eventually.
yeah, I don't think that any author who's published even a single book out there doesn't have at least one person who's like, yeah, this isn't my thing.
Yep.
Right. Right. And if you find someone like that, let me know, because I want some tips.
Right? Yeah, we can all learn something from him.
It's not me. I've got 2-star reviews on mine, so.
I have a couple short stories out, and even I don't like them.
I don't think you're alone there. I think most people who write, at least at some point, hate what they wrote.
Oh yeah.
Even if you come back around eventually, at some point you hated that damn thing.
Yeah. I feel like imposter syndrome is like necessary for becoming a writer.
Oh yeah.
That's huge.
If you don't have that little grain of like self-doubt in you, then you actually do put out bad writing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And you don't notice it. That's the worst part.
Yeah. Well, if you don't notice it, that is definitely the worst. But it's actually really funny. My last book that I released in, I think December. I think I released it in December. But it was, it's my novella, and I told my wife right after the day I had published it. I told her, I said, people are gonna hate this one. She gets really defensive whenever I have a bad review.
Uh-huh.
It's actually really funny to see, because she gets more worked up over them than I do. Like being in it, and I've been doing it a few years now, and I also know, like, I have writers that I absolutely love, and I'll read a book that they wrote and I'll be like, yeah, no, not this one. I'm not a fan. But
not their best, yeah.
And being on the receiving end of it, there's no way to please everybody. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
But she takes every single bad review personally, and it's actually really funny to see, because I almost want to hide them from her sometimes, because she gets so worked up, like she's gonna go track this person down. Like, no, it's not a big deal. They didn't like it. They're gonna move on. I'm gonna move on. It's not a big deal. And I warned her. I said, don't look at the reviews for this one, because I don't think people are gonna like it. People are gonna hate it. And I've actually been pleasantly surprised with the feedback I've gotten. Almost everyone has really enjoyed it. So that was a little bit of a pleasant surprise, but also goes to show, I mean, that was my 7th release. And even after the fact, I was like, man, nobody's going to like this.
Yeah.
I have some people that I know that they go and review everything I've written. And so I know they're not people that I know personally, but I know of them, and I know that they're fans. I'm like, man, I don't think this person's gonna I don't even think this person's gonna like it, and they love everything. And it, even after 7 books, it still hits hard. It doesn't ever go away. And I think you're right. I think if it does go away, I think you're in trouble.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you got to be your harshest critic for sure.
So, do you ever have that feeling? So, like, I'm in the middle of writing my second horror book right now, and I keep getting. I'm like 3/4 of the way through it, and I'm getting to this point in the end where the end is nigh. Like, it is about to happen. It's about to be over, and I'm like, this isn't as good as my first one. It's not good.
Oh,
It's not good. We've got problems here, but I don't know what they are. Do you have those moments now where you feel like you have to one up yourself?
Maybe. Like I said, I kind of jump around within horror and paranormal. So I've got one that's more like my quick little 2-book series that I did, is more of like an action paranormal suspense, and then I've got a ghost story, and I've got, you know, psychological one. I've got one that's a little bit of a sci-fi horror, and then I've got, you know, a possession horror. I've got, you know, I'm kind of all over the place. So they don't really, it's not really apples to apples. So I haven't experienced that personally, but I know the stories that I like better,
Mm-hmm.
and I definitely can tell the difference when I'm more into the story. I mean, obviously, I like all the stories that I came up with, or I wouldn't write them.
Yeah.
But I definitely have, you know, there's a hierarchy, right? I mean, like, there are certain times where it's like, man, I don't want to be writing this. I want to write something else. I want to write the next one. And that to me is more of an issue than saying, well, this isn't going to be as good. But, you know, it's not a straight across comparison. You know,
Yeah, I
it'd be
get
one
that.
thing if I was writing slasher after slasher after slasher, you know, then maybe, you know, I might run into that a little bit more. But because I jump around so much, I don't know that I'm necessarily comparing the stories or the books to each other as much as comparing my interests in them. And some of them, you know, and I'm sure it's right, you know, once you get excited about an idea, right? But then it kind of fades over time. And as you're working on it, it fades. And at least for me, the hope is to get to the end before all the interest is faded.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
get that.
I don't know.
totally.
I don't think I've ever compared one book to another. It's more so on my end versus the reader's end of, you know, like, I'm not feeling this one quite as much as the last one. Maybe I should just wrap it up and move on to something else.
Now I
Yeah.
see on your website you also have some merch.
I do, yeah, and you know, it's nothing fancy. I got a couple of shirts with book covers on them, and one I did, you know, for Liminal, I did character art of the antagonist with a little tagline on it. And then my wife actually, before I started doing in-person events for the first time last year, and what she's thinking, what else can we get for people to make people stop at the table? And she goes, oh, we should make some candles that are, you know, kind of themed with your books. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's not a bad idea. But then she got super busy, and
Oh.
I had already told people I was going to have candles at my next event. So I had to sit and make candles. And I think for like a month and a half, all I did was make candles all day, every day. Just
Jesus.
because it's like we had this idea, but then, you know, life gets in the way sometimes. And so she feels a little bit guilty about that, because the idea was for her to contribute, not for me to stop what I'm doing so I can make all these candles. But so I've got some candles that are, the color and scent is kind of based off of the story. So for some of my books, I don't have for all of them yet. There's a couple that's like, I'm not really sure what scent I should use for this book. But for a few of them, it's like, okay, yeah, there's an obvious choice, and it was actually kind of fun. I mean, I don't know, it's tricky and there's a lot to it, but it's almost relaxing focusing on like being so precise with the candle making.
Mm-hmm.
That it was kind of cool to do that. And you know, and so like at my events, when I go to an event, I'll sell them as a bundle. It's like, hey, you can get the book, or you can get the candle, or you can get them together. And especially if I did one around Christmas time, and it's like, hey, this would be a great gift for you. You know, if you know someone who likes this type of stuff, here's the candle that matches the, you know, like as you're burning the candle, it's gonna make you think about the book,
Uh-huh.
because it's, I mean, the scent is gonna bring back certain passages from the book. And so I thought that was a really cool idea, and it's a lot of fun to add those. But it's, and then the other, so I've got my own publishing imprint, so I got a couple of shirts like, hey, if you want to just support me in general, this is my publishing imprint. But then I try to do something for each book, at least one thing. And I haven't done it for everything, but I also, when I first started, I went the KU route and was exclusively on Amazon. So I didn't really do a whole lot with my website. And once I pulled away from Amazon, I started over time adding a little bit more and a little bit more.
No, that's
Very
super
cool.
cool. I'm like a sucker for merch. So if I like anything, I'll be like, okay, what can I find that like goes along with it? So if I saw you at a stand and you were like, I sell candles and shirts, I would definitely pick one up.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, so for the events, I don't, the shirts are all print on demand, and I'll be honest, I don't sell enough books to stock them.
Okay, gotcha.
It's not cheap to get, so that's just print on demand. But for events, I always try to have stickers and bookmarks and the candles that go with the books.
That's awesome. I love
Yeah.
stickers and bookmarks.
Yeah, I have a stack of like 10 of my own books on my bookshelf, and I keep trying to sell them to people. I've sold about 10 of them so far, but I still have another 10 sitting there mocking me.
Yeah, isn't that the worst? I had so much left over from my last event, and then the two other ones that I had the applications out for, I'm on the wait list for. So it's like, I'm probably not gonna end up doing those. So my next event that I'm doing, that I have confirmed right now, isn't until September. And I've got, for most of my books, I've got like 50 copies of each sitting. I ended up building like a little area in our house because I had 3 rooms that just were full of boxes that they were spread all across the floor, and they're all different size boxes, so they don't stack. It's like, man, what am I gonna do with these? Our house isn't big enough for all this crap. So I made a little, I told my wife, I said, we're making a little shipping station, and I just put a bookshelf up against the wall, and so I've got everything's at least out of the boxes, and it's not taking over our house anymore, thankfully.
Yeah, kind of out of the way.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, you seem like a busy guy. You said you have 5 kids, and then your website says you have a lot of pets. I'm sure it's hard to like find the time to write. So I'm sure you have to be like really good at time management.
I'm terrible at time management, to be honest with you. Yeah, so yeah, we got one dog. We've got our daughter just got a bunny, so we got a, and she's still young enough that she needs help taking care of it.
Right.
And we got 2 big, I mean, they're big. They're probably like 300 pounds each, but pigs. And
Okay.
they're not pigs that we're raising to eat. They're just, my wife has always loved pigs, and our kids love pigs. And we found someone who had some pigs that needed to, they're like rescues.
Uh-huh.
So, hey, go build a 1/4 acre area for these pigs, and we're just gonna, you don't get to ever have any bacon or pork chops out of it, but we're gonna have the pigs. And then we have chickens, and when we first got them, I think we got 6 to start. And then every time my wife went to the store to get more pig feed, she would come home with more chicks.
Oh, God.
So we have 13 chickens now.
Oh my God.
To go with the 2 pigs and a bunny and a dog. So yeah, I stay busy for sure with all the animals, and then the 5 kids. 4 of them are in school, but one of them is only half day school. So I spend a lot of time standing at the bus stop waiting for him.
Yeah.
And then I've got our youngest is just over a year old. And so she's home with me all day. Thankfully, the younger ones still nap, so I get time to work during nap time. And then we try to be pretty good about 7:30, 8 o'clock bedtime. Right now it's basketball season, so for half the week it's 9 or 9:30 before they get home and get in bed. And then I've always been a night owl. I used to work nights. Starting in college, I worked until like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning in college, and then after college, I worked overnight shifts for years. And I never really got back to, hey, it's 10 o'clock, I'm going to bed. I'm always up until 12 or 1.
Yeah.
So if the kids don't cooperate during nap time and I'm not able to get anything done, then I usually try to work. I've got 8:30 or 8 to 10 or 11, whenever my eyes start to get a little heavy, and then I'll go read for a little while or throw something on the TV until I fall asleep. But I try to do some work every day, but it definitely varies. uh, when you've got the kids, it's hard to say no
Yeah.
when they need something. And I'm lucky enough that my wife makes enough that she can support our family, so I'm able to just focus on the kids and the writing. But the
Mhm.
kids, at least when she's not home, they got to come first. So sometimes the writing takes a backseat, and that's when I usually will try to, hey, I can respond to people on Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is,
Right.
and let's make throw something up. Let's think of something to post, and I can do some of that stuff, the different social media stuff, or hey, I got an idea for a new ad. Let me do that while we're hanging out today. And that's stuff I can kind of do while I'm multitasking. But as far as sitting down to write, I try to give myself at least 2 hours a day. But like I said, sometimes nap time it's great, and by 3 o'clock I'm good for the rest of the night and can kind of take it to myself. Or sometimes it's, hey, I'm going to be working from 8 to midnight tonight. It just kind of varies day to day.
Yeah. Okay, I get that. So I'm in college still, and I'm not working right now. So I have like plenty of free time, but it's just hard like actually getting myself to sit down at the desk, pull up the Word doc, and get to work. Even though like I spend like half the day at school daydreaming about what I'm gonna write later when I get home, but then I get home and I'm like, yeah, I'll just throw on the TV, play some video games or do something.
Yeah, what I found worked for me when I got like that was noise canceling headphones.
Mhm.
And then I just kind of I'm a pacer. I walk lines in the wear lines out in the hallway in our house.
Oh, me too.
And just back and forth. So I'll do that, and then I put on my headphones and I'll say, just sit down and write, you idiot. Sometimes that's what I have to do. Is like, I get so hung up, especially if I feel like I'm stuck. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what's supposed to happen. And it's like, I put on the headphones and just kind of take a deep breath. It's like, just start writing, you moron. Like, if you don't write it, you can't fix it, Like,
Yeah.
and it's really funny. Before I got the headphones, my best day ever writing was like 1,300 words in an entire day. And this is counting, college, high school, before I had kids,
Yeah.
whenever. And once I got the headphones, I think I've maxed out at like an 11,000 word day.
Oh my god.
And I mean 2-3 or that wasn't, that wasn't all night. I was up I was up all night. I started writing at about 10 o'clock, and I didn't stop until about 4, other than to go grab a drink out of the fridge.
Oh god.
But that was a fluke. That was a bit of a fluke.
Yeah, yeah.
But I can easily have 2-3,000. Like, it's so funny how things change, because before, even just 2 years ago, 1,000 words, I would have called that a good day. And
Mhm.
now if I don't get 2,500 words, like, man, what was I doing? It's just funny. And for me, at least, the noise canceling headphones is all it took to make that change. Like, if I couldn't hear anything else, can't hear the fridge kick on in the other room, or can't hear the dog running out to get a drink of water, the kids'
Yeah.
little sound box playing their lullabies, just telling myself, like, hey, just sit down and start. Just start. And once I got started, I end up deleting most of it, but once I got started, you kind of get going. It's like, I don't know. It's really hard. It's hard to put into words, which is really weird to say when my job is to put things into words. But
No, I get that.
it's like you almost just have to get through the shit before you can get rid of it and have the good stuff left. Like, and sometimes it's just a sentence or two, and it's like, okay, well, that was terrible, but we'll fix that later, and then you're cruising again.
Yeah, you just got to get back in that zone, like that, like flow state almost. And I always see people be like, you can edit a bad draft, but you can't edit a draft that you haven't written. So yeah, you just got to throw something down and then figure it out later.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a really hard time with that. I like it to be perfect when I first write it, and it never is.
Yeah, same. I think that's my biggest problem right now. Like, I'm stuck writing my first chapter on this book, and I'm like, okay, I got to get every single detail right, every piece of dialogue, whatever. But I'm like, no, just throw something down, move on, and then we'll figure it out later.
Yeah, I've actually
for sure.
In the book that I'm writing right now, there was one scene that I was stuck on, and I literally just put like red parentheses in, and I wrote like insert some dialogue here, and I just moved on with my life.
I think that's the best way to do it. That's
going to be a later problem.
Problem for future Luke.
Yeah,
I did that. I did that when I was going through my first draft of my debut. I wrote it all by hand, and I got through about 3/4 of the way through. There was a parenthesis, and then in all capital letters said add about 3 pages. And then I just kept going.
Yeah, hey, I mean, whatever gets it done.
It's so funny. It's so funny what works sometimes.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody's process is different,
sometimes it's just and sometimes it's just putting and then skipping a line and deleting, go back and delete the and then, obviously. Yeah. But it's almost like the improv classes, right? Like, it's always and then.
Yeah, the yes ands.
It's terrible, but it's like, as long as you get it deleted before anyone else sees it, no one's really gonna know.
Exactly. It never existed.
It's just your secret shame.
So when did you first start getting to writing? I know you said in college with the creative writing classes, but before that, were you writing, or was it just something you kind of picked up along the way?
So I took a creative writing class my senior year of high school. They gave us the option. They said you could either take AP Lit or create. And it's like, well, I definitely want to take creative writing. I don't want to read what someone tells me to read. I want to read what I want to read.
Exactly.
And I got into that. And I mean, but even before that, like elementary school, I would have sleepovers with a buddy of mine, and we would write kind of Weird Al style parody songs.
Okay.
And that's what we would do for hours. And then in middle school, I remember, and this is the first time I remember actually writing something down. I had bought an IBM ThinkPad off of eBay that I had saved up for like a year for, and it is a piece of junk, but it's the first thing I remember actually sitting down and writing. And it was for a 7th grade English class, and they made us read a book. I can't remember what book it was, but for whatever reason, it just felt wrong to me. It felt like the characters did the wrong thing every time. So I guess, I mean, you could almost call it fan fiction, right? It's like what I wish would have happened
Yeah.
in the book. So, but it was different characters and it was a different town, but it was the same plot essentially.
Right.
And it was just my version of it. And I wish I remembered what happened to it, because I think I got pretty far into it, but I have no idea what happened to it. And then the next thing I remember writing, I had started an Area 51 screenplay starring David Duchovny, and he was definitely going to sign on to star in the movie.
Oh, for sure.
It was a given, right?
Yeah.
And so all I remember from that one was the very first scene. They're playing the Area 51 arcade game. I don't know if you guys ever saw that, but it's
I'm familiar.
you know,
The arcade shooter game, right?
It was just an arcade game. It's called yeah. Well, you got the blue or the red plastic gun, and you're shooting the aliens at Area 51. And so they're playing that at Area 51. And then David Duchovny comes in and, you know, tears into everybody like, hey, what are you doing? Get back to work. And, you know, it's just a screenplay. I was writing a movie about what actually happens at Area 51. And that's another one that I really wish I knew what happened to it, because I would love to go back and revisit some of that stuff. But after that, I don't really remember writing a whole lot until that high school class. And then, you know, it's like I really enjoyed that high school class. So as I was in college, I was going to be, you know, I was doing biology for my major. I was going to, you know, I jumped around a whole bunch, but throughout all of it, I was always taking one of the creative writing workshops.
Right.
And so I jumped around so many times that by the end of it, the only thing I had consistently taken throughout my time in college was creative writing classes. And it's like, you know what? Maybe that's what I should just get my degree in. And so I went, and like I said before, I applied for grad school, and
Yeah.
unfortunately that didn't work out. And I didn't look back. I was really bummed, but I mean, I would have loved to have gone to school in San Francisco for writing, but it didn't work out. And so after college, I had a bunch of friends that were a grade, you know, a year below me for as far as when they were going to be graduating. And I had a good job. I worked at the Barnes and Noble on campus, and a cheap place to live, and a steady job, and a bunch of friends to hang out with. I hung out there for a year. I didn't touch a computer or a piece of paper the entire year. And then after that, I got a job actually working construction in North Dakota. And so I went straight from there, from my college town to North Dakota, worked for the summer, and then I had some back issues come up. I ended up needing surgery and had to stop doing that. And after the surgery, I just jumped right back into working, and I wasn't even thinking about writing. And it wasn't until we had our fourth kid, or we were about to have our fourth kid, and it was actually during the pandemic. Our fourth kid he was due in December, and we were looking at it like, what are we going to do? Because this is now too many kids to not have someone watching them. We can't just ask people to do us a favor.
Right.
And none of them were in school yet. They were all too young to be in school, so we had to have someone with them. And even with working nights, like I can't work nights and then come home and take care of 4 kids. And my wife is a teacher. And it's like, okay, well, you're making more money than me. Your benefits are better than what I'm getting. I was a manager in a produce warehouse. But it's like, you know, you're making more money. You're getting better benefits. You got the retirement and the pension and all that. So why don't I just stay home with the kids, at least until they get into school? And at the time, I had no thoughts in my mind about writing.
Uh-huh.
Honestly, it's really weird. I went a stretch of almost 10 years without even thinking about writing. And then as soon as I was home, it's like, man, you guys sleep all the time. What the hell am I supposed to do while you're sleeping? And I started writing, and 6 months later I had a draft of my first book ready to go, and it kind of all took off from there. It's like, man, I really like this, and it worked out great just working while the kids are sleeping.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes things just work out, you know? It wasn't what you planned out. It was a bumpy road, but look where you are now. 7 books out, another one on the way,
Well,
a nice family.
yeah, and it's really fun. It's really funny because I wanted to do it when I finished school. That's what I wanted to do. But then I started working, and I was just so wiped out by the end of the day. It's like, man, I'm just gonna throw something on TV. I'm gonna watch a game, or I'm gonna watch a movie, and I'm gonna go to bed, and I'm gonna get up tomorrow and do the same thing.
Yep.
And then once I had the time, like I said, I'm very lucky that I'm in the situation I'm in where I get to stay home with the kids and write. But I don't know that if we wouldn't have had if we would have stopped having kids, I don't know that I ever would have actually written even one book, let alone 7 or 8.
Yeah, man, it's kind of crazy how sometimes things just work out. It's like the butterfly effect, you know? One little
Yep,
thing
you
leads
never.
to another, changes your whole life.
Yep, you never know
Yeah,
what
for sure.
sort of
For sure.
changes are going to affect the course of your life. I know, this time a year ago is when I made my commitment. Like, I'm going to give this writing thing an honest try, and it's definitely just steamrolled from there. Now here I am hosting a podcast with other indie writers.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I literally just clicked on
Yeah,
a
there
link
you
from a
go.
TikTok video where the founders of Forbidden Origins, Armani and Eric, were like, "Hey, we're looking for writers if anyone's interested." And I was like, "Well, I mean, I guess I used to want to be a writer as a kid. Why not? I'll give it a shot." And they messaged me back, and here I am now.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's funny. I was having trouble sleeping the other night and scrolling through my phone and came across a post on Threads like, "Hey, we're looking for authors who want to come on the podcast." Like, yeah, let's do it. It's just one of those things. Kind of the luck of the timing just kind of works out.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it
Well,
was great to have you on, man. Any final thoughts that you'd like to share with the audience or with us?
No, I mean, I nothing's really jumping out. We were kind of all over the place a little bit.
Yeah, we kind of
Talked
bounced
about
around.
some good movies, some some books, and a little bit about my writing process. And
Yeah, well,
yeah,
it was great
it's
talking
been
to you,
it.
Sean. Thank you so
Yep,
much
it's
for coming on, taking the time out of your day. We're gonna have all his socials and his website linked in the description. If you guys want to check him out, go ahead and read his books. They seem to be really good. I haven't read them yet, but I definitely want to check out Bird's Eye and Liminal. Um, yeah. Any final words, Luke?
No, Sean, thank you so much for having us, or for for being on here with us. It's been great talking to you, and just learning about your writing journey and hearing about your books and your point of view and everything. It's just been really great. You're a really cool guy, and I hope that this podcast reaches some people and you sell some more books. Maybe I don't know, like a million. I think a million is good. You should buy a million of his books.
hey, I'm
Yeah.
gonna hold you to that. I'm gonna hold you to that.
All right. Well, go ahead and follow author Shawn
Yeah,
Winchell on
thanks, guys. This was a
Instagram.
lot of fun.
Yeah, of course, man. Uh, thank you for listening. Like and subscribe. We'll see you guys in the next episode.